Good evening, viewers. You are watching yet another episode of The Point of View with me, Wasbir Hussain. Once again, Bangladesh appears to be on the brink of chaos. The so-called verdict of the International Crimes Tribunal of Bangladesh on Monday that handed over the death sentence to former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina and her then Home Minister Asaduzzaman Khan has been opposed by the Awami League, obviously, and welcomed by all those close to the unelected regime of Muhammad Yunus. There is heavy police and paramilitary deployment in Dhaka and other parts of Bangladesh. Now, Dhaka is seeking Sheikh Hasina's extradition, but the 2013 extradition treaty between India and Bangladesh, among other things, says if the charges for which a person's extradition is sought is seen as politically motivated, then the request can be rejected. This is one part of the story. The second is Bangladesh's increased linkages and bonhomie with Pakistan. India is not taking chances and is bolstering up the defenses along the strategic Siliguri corridor. The big question now is, where is Bangladesh headed and what could be the impact on India? And can Dhaka hold free and fair elections in February 2026? To discuss this and more, I am joined by Ambassador Riva Ganguly Das, former Indian High Commissioner to Bangladesh. She is joining me from the wilds of a tiger reserve somewhere in central India. Joining me from Delhi are Dr. Sriradha Datta from the Jindal School of International Affairs, and also joining me is Ayanjit Sen. Ayanjit Sen is a South Asia geopolitical expert and chief advisor of the Red Lantern Analytica. And in the studios with me is a very decorated army officer, Lieutenant General retired R.P. Kalita, former army commander of the Eastern Command. Lieutenant General Kalita, welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Point of View. Let me first go to you, Ambassador Riva Ganguly Das. Ambassador, what do you make of this verdict? How do you think it could pan out in the next few days? The first thing, of course, Dhaka did was to once again reiterate its demand for the extradition of Sheikh Hasina, who is obviously in exile in India, as well as the former Home Minister Asaduzzaman Khan Kamal. Of course, Awami League supporters are opposed to this verdict. They said that this is politically motivated. It's a sham verdict. But all those who are backing the unelected regime of Muhammad Yunus, they are saying that this is a very great thing to happen. This is the justice has to be delivered, and that the tribunal has delivered. How could things pan out according to you?
Well, these are very uncertain times in Bangladesh. As we can see, it's going through a lot of political churn, a lot of internal developments, which we are all watching very closely, because Bangladesh is a close neighbor. We share a very long border, and certainly this verdict, about which there is nothing surprising. I don't think anybody was expecting anything other than this verdict. Has the potential to cause greater disturbance in Bangladesh. We have seen there has been a lot of violence in recent times, and also very surprisingly that though Sheikh Mujib's house, which was the museum 32 Dhanmondi, has already been almost broken down, two bulldozers actually arrived there to break it down even further, to convert it into a playground or something. So, bulldozer is something which you don't keep, in your house. Somebody must have requisitioned these bulldozers. Somebody must have made them go all the way up to 32 Dhanmondi. So, I think it is for Bangladesh government to decide how they want to deal with this situation. But the country certainly, has fallen into the hands of mobs who do whatever they wish to. And this is, it's also the timing of the verdict before even Yunus government has announced a date for the election is something which only the government can answer why they've done it at this point of time. So these are very uncertain times, and I think Bangladesh is at a very, very critical political juncture right now.
For fear that I might lose the connection with you, let me ask you another question. Now, what are the options before India? Formally, Bangladesh has made a formal request for extradition. Now, as you said very rightly, that this was the verdict that was expected. It has not come as a surprise to all Bangladesh watchers. And India's reaction has been very guarded. It says that we are committed to the best interest of the people of Bangladesh, including in peace, democracy, inclusion, and stability in the country. We will always engage constructively with all stakeholders to that end. That is the MEA statement. How do you see India's response in the days ahead?
See, as far as the extradition request is concerned, I don't think it changes anything on the ground, frankly. And it is quite evident from MEA's statement that MEA is going to watch the situation, which is what MEA has been doing for the last several months. And as the ministry has made it very clear in the past also that we are waiting for a free, fair, inclusive election to take place, and take the relationship forward from there. That is not to say that there is no contact with the Bangladesh government. As you are aware, the National Security Advisor of Bangladesh is going to visit in a day or two. Of course, not on a bilateral visit, but on a regional consultation process. But technical level meetings are also ongoing. So I don't think that we can expect anything drastic to happen till elections takes place and a elected government is in power in Bangladesh.
Okay, Ambassador Ganguly, hold on. Let me take this to Dr. Sri Radha Datta in New Delhi. Dr. Sri Radha, you see, the basic thing was, as we have been discussing, this was expected. Now, there are talk about elections to be held in the month of February. There is already some kind of a chaos in Bangladesh. Awami League is planning to boycott the elections to demonstrate to the world that it is going to be a sham election, even if it is held. And there are already talk going on that elections cannot be actually held. The situation is so volatile.
Let me begin with one of your remarks, Wasbir, where you mentioned that quite naturally Awami League is not happy with this verdict. And you mentioned that only those who are close to the interim government is happy with the verdict. I strongly counter that. Large Bangladeshis are happy with the verdict. It's got nothing to do with the interim and people who support it. They are, the kinds of human rights, uh, you know, against the human rights kind of activities that we've seen Sheikh Hasina undertake. It's got nothing to do with the interim government. There are lots of people who were eagerly waiting for a verdict like this. It's a different matter that I personally don't believe in capital punishment, but again, that's the land of the law. And ICT was started by her. She was the one who sent the Jamaat to the gallows under the same, tribunal. So coming back to that. But in terms of the violence that we are just hearing, how come we are not discussing what Sheikh Hasina has been doing? She's incited violence. She has said her workers should go on to a national lockdown. She has told them, and the last 2 weeks of violence that we see is certainly one that Awami League has created. Not to say that the country wasn't facing violence. Constantly there has been, mobocracy, and there's all kinds of other kinds of violent acts have been taking. But this recent violence that we are talking about is certainly been the onus of the Awami Leaguers. And yes, there was a kind of a triumphant thing by the youngsters at that point of time, and there was the point that was mentioned about bulldozers at the 32 Dhanmondi, which is already broken down. But of course, those are expressions where they want to kind of reinstate the fact that how against they are against the Hasina legacy. But I would actually contradict the statement that the violence is such that elections are not going to happen. No, I don't think so. I think elections will happen. Date hasn't
So
been declared. They said
that
first.
means That means the type of elections that we saw during Sheikh Hasina's reign, that means where the Bangladesh Nationalist Party did not contest the elections, thing is going to happen now. This time there will be no Awami League, and Awami League with boycott. So same situation continues in Bangladesh, where one major political party is all the time kept out of the electoral process.
Yes, unfortunate, but I do hope, and I think BNP is still talking about how Awami League should be part of the electoral process, and but I don't think, I mean, the majority or the interim at this point of time, Awami League, as they say, the activities are remain banned at this point of time, but there's still few months left, 2.5 at least, if not more. So maybe there may be a change of heart with this verdict, but I don't think Sheikh Hasina, with what she's doing sitting in India, is kind of working for the case really. I mean, how under the circumstances, if she's a war criminal still heading Awami League, how do you expect the political party under her to be contesting elections? They can say that we are back, we are not contesting and all of that.
Yeah.
The point is that
Yeah.
the interim doesn't want them to. It's going to look like a one-sided election, but all the whole world, including India, was very happy with one-sided elections right from 2014, 2018, 24. Yes, that time we didn't want to talk about it. There was no point of talking inclusive. We didn't mention that word at all. It is only now we keep it is going to be one-sided, but again, a large majority of Bangladeshis, Wasbir, you're in touch with many, and so am I. They are not in support of Awami League fighting the elections because of the immediate memories of the horrors.
Okay.
But at the same time, I hope BNP's point comes through that it would look like a full-on multi-party and inclusive election if Awami League does participate.
Okay, I will come to General Kalita and take a military perspective, but first let me go to Ayanjit Sen. Ayanjit, everybody knows the credibility of the war crimes tribunal, international the tribunal, which was actually ironically set up by Sheikh Hasina herself in about around 2019, to 2009 or so. Now the International Crimes Tribunal of Bangladesh, now everybody questions its credibility. Yes, but everybody knew that this was coming. Now as Sriradha Datta said, that war crimes, now there will be two sides to the story, isn't it? Some people will call it war crimes, obviously, and some people will say that no, Sheikh Hasina did not indulge in war crimes. So the debate continues, and this political mudslinging continues, point and counterpoint continues.
Yes, I'll agree with you because see, from as far as the 2000 back in 2013, when there were certain parts of that contract which clearly said to do with certain elements which should not have, which were not part of that particular deal signed, and therefore it was very clear that as far as Sheikh Hasina is concerned, her stay in Delhi here or in a part of India, wherever she is in India. Now, as far as her stay is concerned, an unconstitutional regime, from my perspective, cannot ask for any kind of extradition of that sort. And in that case, election needs to take place in Bangladesh. Whenever it does, in February, it is said to be held. So it can only if an elected government comes in place that any kind of extradition requests or anything can be made before India. Because remember, it's a long drawn process. It's not that easy because evidences and all details need to be provided to India. Then India will examine it, and then probably a court case will be filed here. And lawyers from all sides are going to represent, including the Indian government, Bangladesh government, as well as Sheikh Hasina's own lawyers. Then examination of the evidences will take place. So I think it's a long drawn process. It's not going to be that easy. So I firmly believe that it all depends on what happens in the next 1 month or so.
Okay, we'll have to wait and watch. Before coming once again to Ambassador Riva Ganguly, Lieutenant General Kalita, there are two parts that we are discussing now. One is that death sentence and the possible fallout of that. How is it going to pan out in the next few weeks, months, etc. As Ayanjit said, I think it's not going to be easy. Sentence has been thing, but to execute the sentence, it's not going to be easy. Now, the second part that I have mentioned right at the beginning is that you have yourself written a major article about the radicalization in Bangladesh going on. The Bangladesh is hobnobbing with the Pakistanis, and Bangladesh giving permission to the ISI to set up a full-fledged office at the Pakistani embassy, which is totally inimical to India's interest. And and recently how Mohammad Yunus handed over a map to a Pakistani general showing the entire Northeast India as part of Bangladesh, and so on. So this continues, this provoking India continues. Then how do you think the situation to evolve in the next couple of months, weeks before elections, even if at all it takes place in the month of February?
Before I answer your question, I just wanted to bring out a point regarding the stance that has been taken by the Chief of Army Staff of Bangladesh till now. He has decided not to interfere with the political process, but however, he has laid down a deadline that elections must be held and democratic process must be started as early as possible. That he has done couple of months back. And thereafter, he has stayed away directly from the political development that is taking place, but he is trying to ensure that security situation is stabilized. That is the step or stance I would say the Chief of Army Staff of Bangladesh has taken so far. But if we see the situation now with the radical extremist element having gained upper hand under the Mohammad Yunus governance, and the political process is not going the way it should be progressing. The July Charter, which sought to bring in constitutional reforms, has been supported only by Jamaat-e-Islami and the NCP party, which has been formed by the student leaders. The BNP, even Jatiya Party and the others who are not banned except for the Awami League, they are also slightly doubtful about the July Charter, which was brought about by the present caretaker government. So, having said that, coming back to your question about the increased relationship or improving relationship with Pakistan Army and the Bangladesh state as whole, that definitely has a big implications for us, because Pakistan, by an instrument of state policy, has started a proxy war against India. And if you remember, some time back there was a Pakistan military spokesperson. He had issued a statement that after Operation Sindoor, that the next time the attack would be taken into Indian heartland and it will start from the east.
Yes.
So that definitely conforms to the improved thaw in the relationship between Pakistani military as well as in Bangladesh. So, increased visit or the setting up of ISI camp, which you referred to, are also indicative towards this. They also visited a military garrison called Ramu camp, which is located next to Cox's Bazar, which is in proximity to Myanmar. And we all know that in Myanmar, ARSA, which is a Arakan Salvation Army, that has always been backed by the Pakistan and the ISIs.
Yeah.
So, all this does not augur well for India's interest, and we need to be watchful and we need to keep our contingency plans ready for any sort of eventuality that may play out.
Yes, that is a sufficient caution by General Kalita here, who has been writing and talking about this issue. Let me once again go back to Ambassador Riva Ganguly. Ambassador, you see, these two aspects that we are talking now, an unstable Bangladesh, which is our closest neighbor, which doesn't augur well for India, isn't it? Because we need a stable Bangladesh, but by all accounts, here is an unelected government, an interim regime who is taking decisions without any elected mandate of the people, hobnobbing with the Pakistanis, forcing India to not take chances. India has set up 3 new military garrisons, one in Dhubri, that Lasit Borfukan military station, in Chopor in West Bengal, Kishanganj in Bihar, apart from the existing ones, whether it is Bagdogra, Hasimara, so on and so forth. Now elections in February 23, that is crucial to have a stable government in Bangladesh, where our government can once again establish contacts and work for stability. So that doesn't seem to be going to be easy, holding a free and fair elections with participation and so on.
Well, I have to say that the audio is, I'm hardly able to hear what's the discussion because, I think my link is a little weak. Well, see, elections, Dr. Yunus has said several times that he wants to conduct elections in February. There was this whole issue of whether elections and the referendum on the reform will happen on the same day or it will happen on different days. Now he has announced that on 11th, if I remember correctly, he's announced that the reform referendum and election will happen on the same day. Now, the whole referendum process is still under a lot of internal discussion in Bangladesh. Political parties are not agreed on it. Besides which, the whole referendum issue is a very complex issue. There are a lot of questions on which there are a lot of reform ideas on which the BNP has what they are calling it, given notes of dissent, which means they don't agree with this reform. And there is also a certain degree of public opinion which believes that, an elected government, only an elected government which comes with the mandate of the people, has the right to bring about large-scale reforms.
Yes.
There is also a political view voiced by the NCP, the national, the party which was recently formed by the students, which says that, the political, they represent, or and the Jamaat says they also represent the will of the people. So I think this whole reform issue is a very complex issue which the Indian government will have to deal with. But I think people by and large in Bangladesh feel they are now absolutely ready for elections. They want to have an election, they want an elected government in place, because this is also linked to the state of the economy. As you know, there is no investment happening in Bangladesh. IMF has refused to release the last tranche, saying that it will do so after consultation with the elected government. And overall, the economic situation is deteriorating because, there are a lot of decisions which an elected government can take, which I think the interim government is finding hard to take on. So all said and done, elections will have to take place. Whether it will take place in February or not is a very big question, because if it doesn't take place in the first half of February, it can get delayed by a very long time, because mid-February onwards is Ramadan, and to be followed by long Eid holidays, and thereafter it becomes quite hot in Bangladesh, but well, that is not really a very important factor. So we'll have to watch and see when elections take place and how fair these elections are, whether all parties will be able to participate or not, because along with Awami League, there are also a whole lot of other parties which used to, be in alliance with Awami League, who have also not been co-opted in all the consultation process which is going on right now.
Yes, absolutely. Now the point, Dr. Srirada Datta, is that the interim government is taking decisions right, left and center. Now a lot of people think that Sheikh Hasina has done everything wrong, so the interim government is trying to do everything right, and not have been without waiting for the people to elect their new government. And even if they elect, there will be one or two political parties which will be not in the scene. Now, do you think the damage will already be done as far as from India's point of view, because you are getting so close to Pakistan, you are getting so close to China, that when an elected government is comes into place, then what happens? Will they continue with that policy? Will they change into the policy? Can we expect them to be having a friendly relations with India suddenly?
So coming back to the reforms first, yes, I think the interim probably chewed off much more than their mandate was. They probably were just wanting to stabilize the nation and go ahead. So I think economic reforms were the hour of the need, which they did manage to kind of hold on, because Bangladesh was left into the rabbit's hole by Sheikh Hasina in the last 2 years. And I think that's a point that nobody was noticing really, but it all unraveled quite quickly and one understood that. But so clearly, a lot of the reforms, which is essentially the constitutional reforms, the large substantial reforms, have been now left for the July Charter. So hopefully, an elected government will be able to take a call. Now, on this particular, I think their overreach on foreign policy has also been substantial. And the point that you make, it's Pakistan, Turkey, China. Of course, they've always had a very good equation with. But this recent thing, and where Pakistan clearly, I mean, I find this really funny that ISI travels all over the world, but I've never seen them doing photo ops like this. What they've done when they went to Chittagong and different parts of Dhaka and all of that. So clearly they want to engage. There's been periodic high level visits, including a foreign minister coming there after so many years. So that proximity, I think, I mean, we've always heard that Bangladeshi military always had links with Pakistan military. It's not a new phenomena, but now the openness to it, and they are clearly, the administration and establishment seems to be working, trying to work closely. Karachi port has been offered to move the jute cargo and some other such products which was banned by India. So what you're saying is whether the elected government will be able to move away from these kind of political cozying up that has happened, which I think is unlikely, because if I'm not terribly sure whether any of the political parties approve or don't approve of the coziness. China, of course, everybody agrees on. I mean, it's a broad spectrum, whether it is Awami, BNP, whoever, they all work closely with China, so that's not a new thing. But this particular, especially Pakistan, Turkey, is a new element. And while I'm not terribly convinced that all of Bangladesh is interested in Pakistan, I mean, if local people on the road still have a distaste for Pakistan and they keep raising it at any formal issue. But yes, what you're saying is correct. Even an elected government will not be able to completely jump out from the already political, foreign policy landscape that has been built. But at the same time, I think we need to understand that irrespective of which political party forms the government, it will be impossible for India to kind of replicate the relationship that it had, earlier. So we will have to make fresh start here. I think look at the minimum, things like trade and other kind of issues, and we'll have to work on it on a issue base. I think little way. I don't think it's overnight with the elected government coming in, things are going to completely change drastically.
Okay,
there has to be small elements, incremental way ahead.
Right. I'll go for a short break. When I come back, I'll go to Ayanjit Sen and come to the General Kalita at the studios here. Don't go away. I'll be right back. Welcome back. Let me go straight to Ayanjit in New Delhi. Ayanjit Sen, it appears as if, the interim government, which is absolutely unelected, it was installed by the students at a critical juncture. And Muhammad Yunus, given a choice, he will not hand over power, except for that military chief, Bangladesh army chief, who has set a deadline, Waqiruzzzaman. If he would not have taken a tough stand, perhaps Muhammad Yunus would have said pretty without going for the elections. Now he has gone for the elections. He has said that he will hold the election sometime in the month of February. In the meantime, Bangladesh economy is in total shambles. As the Ambassador Ganguly said, there is absolutely no investment. International Monetary Fund has refused to release the latest tranche of its assistance, financial aid to Bangladesh. Now here, you see an unelected leader who is in a hurry to come up with a diplomatic, relations with Pakistan, China, Turkey, and whatnot, and provoking India again and again and again. Now, my question is, if an election is held, a major political party like the Awami League is not there. The Bangladesh Nationalist Party earlier did not have that kind of an equation with India, but after the interim government of Muhammad Yunus took over, I saw a statement by the Bangladesh Nationalist Party saying that we would definitely like to work in close cooperation with India if we come to power. How do you look at all of this?
Well, Wasbir, see, there are certain things as far as the way Yunus and the other, and the entire thing happened, and he came to power. At the first thing, it's an unconstitutional regime. Number one. Number two, as far as the politics within Bangladesh is concerned, BNP initially BNP along with Jamaat and the newly made party. There were three parties along with the Yunus and his advisors. They all got together and kind of, in a way, thought about getting the election done without Awami League. I'll give you a small example here. Today at 4 o'clock in the evening, Yunus, in his the place where he's staying, in his official state guest house, Yamuna, has had a meeting with one of the government advisors, Asif Mahmood, and also with Mahfouz Alam. And this is through absolutely 1000% confirmed sources that in that meeting, he has, today, I'm talking about today itself, he has asked the militia and the ISI, he's going to take the help of the ISI to and try and wipe out whatever is left of Awami League in Bangladesh, so that before the elections, when they come, it would be a safe game for them. Now, that's something which is in the pipe. I mean, that's something which they have kind of thought about. And as far as there are also, as far as Pakistan is concerned, as it was said earlier in the show, several training camps have been made across in different parts of Bangladesh with the help of ISI. As we know, ISI is kind of freely roaming around all across, and all details, of course, come to India. But one thing is certain that from an Indian standpoint, I would always say that it's not about who's coming to power, which party comes to power. My point here is that whoever comes to power at the end of the day should be, from an Indian standpoint, we should be at an advantageous position. It should not be that whoever comes in, I'm not bothered about who comes in, but at the end of the day, Indian interests should be, under all circumstances, taken care of.
Absolutely. Indian interest has to be taken care of. General Kalita, 9th of November, the Pakistan Navy Chief Admiral Naved Ashraf met Bangladesh Army Chief General Wakil Zaman and held talks with his counterpart, Admiral M. Nazmul Hassan, as well, to bolster bilateral defense ties. 25th of October, Pakistan Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff Committee, General Shahid Shamshad Mirza, met Muhammad Yunus in Dhaka. Last month, Islamabad established a special inter-services intelligence cell inside his High Commission in Dhaka. The move follows a 4-day visit by Pakistan Chairman of Joint Chief of Staff Committee to Bangladesh and so on. So all of this, and you've got, as Sri Radha Datta said, and it is shocking to see photo ops, ISI indulging in photo opportunity. These are not secret visits, they're open about it. And you see Muhammad Yunus handing over a map to a Pakistani general where showing all of Northeast India as part of Bangladesh and so on. So what is the idea? Because is he not aware of the fact that he's just an interim government and tomorrow somebody else may come up who may have a good relation with India? Who knows?
You see, if we go back slightly, Bangladesh, we see the radical forces plus the extremist forces, their influence growing over past few years. The only stumbling block or only obstacle in the path of rise of the Jamaat-e-Islami and the Islamist forces was Awami League, because of the history of 71 war and Jamaat-e-Islami having taken part alongside the Pakistan army against the Bangladeshi common people. So that's a known fact, and everybody is aware of that. So Awami League was the only obstacle in the path of Jamaat-e-Islami gaining relevance within Bangladesh, as also the extremist and the militant forces getting back into the game within Bangladesh. So we see a huge rise in extremist activities. Immediately after the Muhammad Yunus government took over, there are a lot of leaders of extremist groups which were either released from the jail or they escaped from the jail. So now it is Jamaat-e-Islami hobnobbing with the Pakistan army, because Pakistan army has got their support base. Jamaat-e-Islami is the support base for the Pakistan as well as the ISI. So that has been their traditional support base, and with their gaining influence within the Bangladesh society, definitely Pakistan army is much more comfortable now to come and re-establish their offices and start off their proxy war activities against India's interest. So definitely that's what they are doing. So some of it has been photo ops, which are, of course, it goes along with the visits that are taking place, but these are definitely against India's interest, and we need to be cognizant of that, and we have to have our preparations all the time.
Now, that's a very interesting point. Dr. Srirada Datta, the common people of Bangladesh, the common multitude who are the voters, do you think the vast majority of them have forgotten about the genocide by the Pakistani army during the 1971 war, how they have killed, maimed, raped their women in Dhaka and all over the place in Bangladesh? Do you think they have forgotten about it, or do you think it is the Gen Z who do not know the history and therefore they don't know anything, and therefore they are looking at the things from Muhammad Yunus's point of view?
So if you're discussing voters, this is going to have about, I think, 140 million voters, 135 actually, of which 40 million are the youth voters this time, and first time voters who didn't get a chance to vote in the earlier election.
Yeah.
So yeah, youth factor is very important here, but the point that you say is also equally important, is that, you know, the generation who was associated with the liberation war are now very senior, and some have moved on, right? I mean,
Yeah.
given the age and all of that. So, but at the same time, while of course the Gen Z is probably are not so emotive about that particular element at this point of time, they don't look at it through the same, you know, prism that the parents or the grandparents did. But what I've noticed, of course, as I'm saying, it's obvious that the links are growing, you know, the security links, the military links, but socially and politically, I've not heard any Bangladeshi say anything nice about Pakistan. And whenever I mentioned, you know, the kind of, you know, cozying up that is happening, they said, oh, these people keep doing all this. But in terms of their acceptance, I think that's still a question. But that is not to ever, you know, question what Pakistan can do and leverage against, you know, Indian interest. That's a separate matter altogether.
Yeah, but okay, I accept, fully accept your point that you know, people have moved on who had seen those days. They are quite senior people now. Some of them have, as you said, moved on. Gen Z is not aware of the those days. That doesn't matter to them because they were not part of those days. It's only history lessons as far as they are concerned. But what about Muhammad Yunus himself? How has he forgotten? How can he associate with the Pakistani military? Because that was the first thing that he did after taking over, is to invite the Pakistani army to come and train the Bangladeshi soldiers. That's one of the first things that he did when he took over on the 8th of August last year.
That's true. That's what I'm saying. What the interim has done in terms of, you know, engaging with Pakistan seems a bit out of place, really. I mean, what is it that they have to gain by engaging with? I mean, you know, Pakistan is in an economically pathetic state themselves.
Yes.
So they're not able to support. The only thing that they've offered here is Karachi port, and, you know, some other economic stops which really don't amount to much. So it is a political messaging that they're doing quite clearly. And we do understand that India has suffered in the past when these elements get together, what it does mean for India. But I think the point here that we really have to remember, as I said, that, you know, we will never be able to replicate the kind of relationship that we enjoyed under Awami League and Sheikh Hasina anymore, even if an Awami League comes back. Let's say another 5 years time, few years time, Awami League is bound to come back. It's still the largest and the, you know, the oldest political party that Bangladesh has. But at the same time, I think we really have to be clear that India's security perceptions have to be addressed completely by India themselves. I don't think we can rely on our neighbors to take care of our interests the way Sheikh Hasina had it taken care of India's interest. I think that phase is completely over. It's a new era that we've moved into, and we will have to do whatever it takes in our. And somebody mentioned just now about national interest. In all foreign policy outreach, India's of course looked at national interest, even during Sheikh Hasina's time. So not that that's ever been in question, but here now, I think to expect that Bangladesh as a neighbor is going to address any of your concern is something that we will have to now, reconsider, recalibrate.
No, I don't think. It is fair to expect Bangladesh of today, in the last 1 year, to address India's concerns. India is already addressing the concerns. India is trying to hit Bangladesh hard economically. I am coming to you, Ayanjit. General, we have already bolstered our defenses along the Siliguri corridor. We have set up military stations in Dhubri. We have set up military stations in Bihar, West Bengal, apart from those in Hasimara and so on and so forth. And that air exercise, the 93rd air show that was held in Guwahati, it also sent out a very clear message to our neighbors, because those aircrafts, we sat on the banks of the Brahmaputra and saw that beautiful spectacle on top of us. But we must also realize that these were synchronized aircraft movements from all these eastern air bases, and who came over at the same time on top of the Brahmaputra in Guwahati for the people to watch. But this also is a message that we were working in sync, because we were at a flying distance of less than 1 hour from all these bases, which are very, very close to the Siliguri corridor. And we have our Rafales, we have our all the squadrons of the latest state-of-the-art Air Force equipment. So we have along the border with Bangladesh and of course China. General.
Yeah, you see, if you go to Siliguri corridor, the vulnerability of Siliguri corridor is well known to everybody, and particularly in the armed forces and in the higher decision makers body, they are quite conscious of the vulnerability that the Siliguri corridor has.
Yes.
It's the soft underbelly of our country, which provides strategic connectivity to the northeast. So definitely in last about 10-15 years, there has been concerted steps taken to strengthen the Siliguri corridor, so to say, whether in terms of inducting latest aircraft like Rafale, which has come in, or in terms of other assets, which are whether it's army assets or air force assets, which would basically strengthen not only the defenses of Siliguri corridor, which can also be utilized for offensive against any inimical forces. It's not primarily to say that they should be based at Siliguri corridor itself, because Air Force particularly, they can have bases anywhere and they can operate anywhere.
But the fact that we have increased our defenses.
Definitely we have increased, and we are conscious of the threats. You see, any forces, if their disposition is dependent on the threat that you envisage. So, there are certain discussions which have taken place where we analyze what sort of threats are envisaged to Siliguri corridor or to the northeast, and based on which certain disposition and certain changes have been made, certain addition of military camps like you have mentioned, that has been made, certain addition of assets, military assets have taken place. Alongside the air show which we had in Guwahati, recently we also had an joint exercise in Arunachal between Army and Air Force, which concluded about just 2 days back. So, these are all preparatory actions, also not only preparatory action, they are also strategic messaging to our adversary that we are ready. If you wish to do something, we have our capability, we have our assets.
Will be tackled.
Yeah, we have our assets in place to address any sort of challenge.
I'm not going to say what he said, but the Eastern Army commander has also said, gave out a very tough statement 2 days ago at Walong during the Walong Day celebration. So, all these are trying to boost the morale of the forces which are already at a very high level of preparedness, because as I always say, the Indian Army of 2025 is not the Indian Army of 1962.
Absolutely.
So, we need to know that. Anyway, let me go to Ayanjit. Ayanjit, basically what we are watching is that the international community, I'll ask the same question to Sri Radha as well. Now, the United Nations chief said that he is against the death sentence being meted out by the so-called International Crimes Tribunal of Bangladesh and so on, because he does said that he doesn't support such a kind of a punishment in today's day and age. and international community's opinion is very important for a country which depends on external aid, and more so now when its economy is in shambles. I'm talking about Bangladesh, Ayanjit.
Well, before I move into the question, just to make things one thing very clear, but as far as my last statement to do with the Indian interests go, India has always taken care of its own interests. There's nothing more to do with it. It's going to go on forever. Now, coming back to your question of the international, the reaction that has come so far, of course, from the UN and vis-a-vis the other countries, there are some countries who are, I repeat, who are going to come out in support of the fact that such kind of punishments are not required in this kind of era. And at the end of the day, you have to remember that all these, the courts that have been set up by the current regime is at the end of the day, it's a forced coercion. So unconstitutionally, from that perspective, this regime is not, whatever comes through the court verdict is absolutely reprehensible. At the same time, I term it as completely unconstitutional. And I can say for one thing I can definitely say that this is going to be changed in due course of time as we go ahead. You will see the kind of international pressure growing. I repeat, you will see it coming in within the next 1 week.
Sri Radha, an interesting aside, the Bangladeshi media was full of reports that the date and timing of the verdict by the ICT was 17th of November, which incidentally was Sheikh Hasina's, wedding anniversary. So anyway, not going to bother too much about the date. But it was originally supposed to have been, apparently, according to the Bangladesh media, the verdict was supposed to have been given on the 13th of November. Then suddenly they announced that, okay, we will give it on the 17th of November to coincide with her wedding anniversary. But that's not a big thing. My question is the same thing which I just asked Ayanjit. Already the United Nations chief has come out openly against the death sentence. And what do you predict? Do you think international pressure or international opinion at least is going to grow in the days ahead?
Possible. Even Human Rights Watch has said that they don't, support capital punishment. I think in today's, time and era, it's something that we all find reprehensible, really. But that's a different issue. Yes, there may be some kind of pressure, but I'm not sure how much. It'll impact in terms of the ICT verdict per se. I think maybe for future they'll probably do something, but I don't see, maybe the elected government comes in and then changes, some of the legal nuances. That's quite a possibility. But at this point of time, under international pressure, I'm not convinced that the interim is going to do any former changes. But as you correctly pointed out, that, if the multilateral organizations who are, Bangladesh certainly dependent on them, if that's the kind of pressure that comes on Bangladesh, it's likely there will be some changes. But I am skeptic here, but I certainly would hope. I mean, this is, as I said right at the beginning of the program, that this is not a punishment that I certainly support in any which way. I mean, the highest punishment can be meted out, yes, but capital punishment is something, that's a debate that we've often done in India also. So on that issue, yes, there would be international pressure, but whether that pressure is enough for them to change their verdict is something I'm not sure will happen under interim. But again, under
Srida, I'm not expecting anyone to change the verdict. But right at the beginning of this conversation, you said that it's not just those people who are supporting Muhammad Yunus, but generally people are happy with the verdict. Do you think they're happy with the verdict because they cannot oppose the verdict except the Awami League? Can anyone oppose the verdict openly in Bangladesh today?
They're happy with the verdict that she's been punished. I'm not saying that people in Bangladesh are supporting a capital punishment. I didn't mean that. I said in the sense that you said that people, were waiting for a verdict like this. And I think some families who've been directly affected in the July uprising clearly think that there is some amount of justice which has been meted out. But I'm not talking about the capital punishment here, but I think there's a large population in Bangladesh who do believe that, there was huge errors and misgovernance, which led to almost genocidal violence against a lot of people that of course wasn't brought under our attention at that point of time, but now has subsequently. And I think there's been enough documentation and evidences to show what had happened in the last 12 years or more years of her government. I think that's another point that is going to be brought out in the public domain more clearly. Of course, this time ICT was all about the July incidents, and I don't think anybody is in denial about the fact. Awami League can say what they have to, Sheikh Hasina can say what she has to, but the kind of bombing that happened from helicopters, the shootout orders that happened, was open to all to see. So I think that's what I'm saying, that people were happy to see that justice has been meted out.
Right.
I'm not talking about the capital punishment per
Okay.
se.
I am absolutely running out of time. Ayanjit, your final comments. How do you see the road ahead in the next few weeks, few months?
Well, as I said before, I think there's something which is going to happen within Bangladesh, possibly in a month and 2 weeks, within 6 weeks. Because at the end of the day, the so-called verdict given by the kangaroo court, as Sheikh Hasina had termed it, I would say that what the Bangladesh current administration is doing a lot of narrative building. And it's kind of, this is kind of messaging before the elections that's on expected lines. But I would, at the end of the day, still say that democracy is definitely a mess in Bangladesh currently. But within the next few weeks, I would expect two things. One is this, what I said, and the other is some sort of activity which may increase on our border. Because there are two groups, I can now name them, two terrorist organizations of Pakistan, Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed. Most of them sneaked in through the Chittagong port. I can tell you the dates as well. It was in November and December, and they sneaked in and did not do anything within the cities of Bangladesh. They went and are kind of some way holed up across the border in certain areas and are waiting for opportunities. And that's something which the Indian forces are very much aware of, and they are taking all possible steps to thwart any kind of such thing happening, because at the end of the day, under the current administration, it's terrorism and militancy which is getting the prime time.
General Kalita, your final thoughts.
Yeah, the instability in Bangladesh and the rising influence of the radicalized extremist elements and increased hobnobbing with Pakistan, particularly ISI, is not in the interest of India's security situation, particularly with reference to the vulnerable Northeast, because Northeast as it is has having a lot of issues, and the continued instability may also lead to migration and refugee problem, which will cause social stress within our country, particularly in Northeast and in West Bengal. And there are a lot of, we all know that there are a lot of sleeper cells which are existing within India, particularly in Northeast again and in West Bengal, which can be exploited by what Mr. Sen had mentioned about Lashkar and Jamaat modules, which have already come into Bangladesh, and they are operating with the Bangladesh based extremist groups like Huji, JMB and Hifazat-e-Islam. So, definitely they can trigger something, a transborder, some sort of operation, which are a live threat as far as we are concerned, and we need to be conscious of that. Some couple of months back, we also saw Jamaat-e-Islami threatening a village in Dhubri. There is an audio message which was given on the mobile, where the villagers of an Indian village in Dhubri were being threatened not to support the Indian security forces. So, we can see a rise in such like activities, and we have to take our security agencies and our intelligence agencies have to be on overdrive.
Absolutely. Finally, I am playing the devil's advocate, Sri Radha. Assume that the NCP comes to power. Muhammad Yunus as the interim head does not contest the elections. But suppose, hypothetical question, if the NCP comes to power, do you think Muhammad Yunus will say, okay, make me the Prime Minister of Bangladesh and I will win the elections in 6 months?
NCP won't come to power, but let's look at the hypothetical position. Suppose they do come to power, Yunus will probably be the president, not Prime Minister. There are enough leaders amongst the NCP to become the prime minister, so that may be a bargain. But I don't see a scenario in this coming election or the next second election where NCP can ever come to power. NCP will take time to build up, but that's another scenario
Yeah,
again.
absolutely. We'll have to wait and watch. A lot of possibilities as far as Bangladesh is concerned, but on the whole, we cannot take the situation lightly. What is emerging in Bangladesh is absolutely it's a matter of concern for India, whether the hobnobbing and the linkages with Pakistan, whether the Pakistani terrorist elements opening shop in Bangladesh, the role of Mohammad Yunus himself, the anti-India role of Mohammad Yunus himself is something which we need to be concerned about. And of course, the internal security situation in Bangladesh, that instability itself is not in India's interest. But what can India do? Of course, we are closely watching the situation, and of course, for a response to be formed up by New Delhi, one has to wait and watch and wait perhaps for the next election results. And yes, Mohammad Yunus may not be totally wiped out from Bangladesh socio-political firmament. He could well become the president if some of these elements close to him comes to power, but we'll take a close watch on the situation. I thank all my panelists, Ambassador Riva Ganguly, Dr. Srirada Datta, Ayanjit Sen, and Lieutenant General R.P. Kalita for participating in this discussion. And thanks viewers for watching the program. Good night and goodbye.